I was 12 years old the first time my mother told me I didn't matter as much as my brother. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the three of us, Mom, my older brother Ryan, and me. Dad had died 6 months earlier, a sudden heart attack that left us reeling and broke. The life insurance policy he'd always talked about turned out to be worth far less than anyone expected, barely enough to cover the funeral. The house, the savings account, the small hardware store he'd built from nothing, it was all drowning in debt we didn't know existed. Mom had spread papers across the table, her reading glasses perched on her nose, her face tight with worry. "We need to make some decisions," she'd said, and I remember thinking how old she looked suddenly, how the lines around her mouth had deepened into crevasses. Ryan was 15, cocky and confident in that way teenage boys are when the world still feels like it owes them something. I adored him then. He was my big brother, my protector, the one who'd let me tag along to the park and didn't complain too much when I wanted to play video games with his friends. "I can't afford to send both of you to college," Mom said, her voice flat and exhausted. "We barely have enough to keep this house." I felt my stomach drop, but I didn't understand yet. "Not really. Ryan needs to finish high school, and then he'll go to state," she continued, not looking at me. "He's going to need an education to support a family someday, to carry on your father's legacy." "What about Melissa?" Ryan asked, and I felt a flash of gratitude that he'd spoken up for me. Mom finally looked at me then, and something in her eyes made me feel small, insignificant. "Melissa is just a girl. She'll get married eventually. Her husband will take care of her. That's how it works. Just a girl." Those 3 words embedded themselves in my chest like shrapnel. I felt them lodge somewhere between my ribs and my heart, sharp and painful and impossible to remove. "But I want to go to college too," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I have good grades. Better grades than Ryan." It was true. I was an straight-A student, obsessed with science and mathematics, already dreaming of becoming an engineer like Dad had always encouraged me to be. Ryan was a solid C student who spent more time on the basketball court than in the library. Mom sighed, like I was being difficult, like I was asking for something unreasonable instead of the same opportunity as my brother. "Melissa, you need to be realistic. Ryan is the man of the house now. He has responsibilities. You'll understand when you're older." I didn't understand, but I learned to stop asking. Over the next 6 years, I watched my mother pour everything into Ryan. Every spare dollar went to his needs: new basketball shoes, SAT prep courses, application fees to colleges. When he got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, she took out a loan to cover the rest. She was so proud, crying happy tears at his graduation party, telling everyone who would listen about her son, the college man. I wore the same 3 pairs of jeans throughout high school, rotated the same 5 shirts. I worked at the local diner starting at 15, lying about my age to get hired, saving every penny in a shoebox under my bed. When I needed supplies for school, I bought them myself. When I wanted to take the SAT, I paid the fee with money I'd earned scrubbing grease from plates and enduring the wandering hands of middle-aged men who thought a teenage waitress was fair game. "You're so responsible, Melissa," Mom would say sometimes, usually when she needed me to watch the house while she drove 2 hours to visit Ryan at college. "So mature for your age." But she never asked if I wanted to go to college too. Never acknowledged that every A on my report card was an achievement worth celebrating. Never seemed to notice that I stayed up until 2 in the morning studying after my shifts ended, determined to prove that being just a girl didn't make me less capable. The day I got my acceptance letter to MIT, I held it in my trembling hands and felt something crack open inside my chest. Full academic scholarship. They wanted me. One of the best engineering programs in the country, and they wanted me. I showed Mom at dinner that night, sliding the letter across the table with a pride I couldn't contain. For a moment, just a moment, I thought maybe this would change things. Maybe she'd finally see me. She glanced at it, then went back to her meatloaf. "That's nice, honey. But you know we can't afford for you to go away to school. Ryan still has 2 years left, and the loans are already overwhelming. Besides, Boston is so far away. What would you do there all alone?" "It's a full scholarship, Mom." "Full. It wouldn't cost you anything." There are always costs, she said, not looking at me. Books, housing, food, travel. And what about me? Am I supposed to live in this house alone? You're all I have here. The words she didn't say hung in the air between us. Ryan is the important one. Ryan is worth the sacrifice. You're just a girl, and girls stay close to home until some man decides to take them off my hands. I went to MIT anyway. I packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags, took the money from my shoebox, and bought a bus ticket to Boston. Mom didn't speak to me for a week before I left, moving through the house like I was already gone, like I'd betrayed her by wanting more than the life she decided I deserved. The night before I left, she finally came to my room. I thought maybe she'd softened, maybe she'd tell me she was proud, that she loved me, that she was sorry for making me feel like I mattered less than my brother. Instead, she handed me an envelope with $200 inside. "This is all I can give you," she said. "Don't call asking for more. I have to focus on Ryan." I took the money because I needed it, hating myself a little for it. "Okay. You're making a mistake," she said from the doorway. "You'll see. You'll end up pregnant or married or both, and all this will have been for nothing. Girls like us don't get to have those kinds of dreams." I didn't cry until she left. Then I sobbed into my pillow, mourning something I couldn't quite name. The mother I'd wanted. The childhood I deserved. The belief that I was worth as much as my brother. MIT was brutal and beautiful, and everything I'd imagined. I worked 3 part-time jobs to cover what the scholarship didn't. I tutored other students in math, worked in the library, and did data entry for a professor's research project. I survived on ramen and peanut butter and determination that tasted like spite. I called Mom once a week those first few months, trying to maintain some thread of connection. The conversations were painful and one-sided. She'd talk about Ryan, his classes, his friends, his new girlfriend. When I tried to share my own experiences, she'd cut me off with "that's nice, dear," before changing the subject back to her golden child. I stopped calling as frequently, then barely at all. Ryan, to his credit, tried to maintain a relationship. He'd text me occasionally, send me stupid memes, invite me to visit him at State even though it was hours out of my way. But there was a distance between us now, an unspoken acknowledgement that we lived in different worlds with different expectations and different values. In my junior year, he called me at 2 in the morning. I answered groggily, my heart racing because nothing good ever comes from late-night calls. "Melissa?" His voice was slurred, panicked. I fucked up. I really fucked up. He'd gotten his girlfriend pregnant. She was keeping the baby. They were going to get married, drop out of school, move back home with Mom until they could get on their feet. "What do you need from me?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Mom's freaking out. She doesn't have any money to help us. The loans for my school are crushing her. I thought maybe you're doing so well up there and I heard you got some big internship. You want me to send you money? Just a loan. Just until we figure things out. Please, Mel. Your family." I thought about all the times I'd needed help and gotten nothing. All the times my achievements had been dismissed while Ryan's mediocrity was celebrated. All the times I'd been told I was just a girl, that my dreams didn't matter, that I should be grateful for scraps. "No," I said. "What?" "No." "Figure it out yourself." Like I had to. I hung up before he could argue, before guilt could make me change my mind. Then I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling of my tiny dorm room, feeling something shift inside me. Not cruelty, exactly. More like boundaries. Self-preservation. A refusal to set myself on fire to keep them warm. Mom called me a week later. Not to check on me, not to see how I was doing, but to scream at me for abandoning my brother in his time of need. "After everything we've done for you," she yelled, her voice shrill with anger. "After I raised you and fed you and gave you a home, this is how you repay me? Your brother needs help, and you turn your back on him?" Something inside me snapped. Years of swallowed hurt and buried resentment came rushing up my throat, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. "What did you ever do for me, Mom?" My voice was shaking but clear. "You paid for Ryan's everything and gave me nothing. You told me I was just a girl, that I didn't matter, that my dreams were worthless. You made me feel invisible in my own family. So no, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe Ryan anything. I made it here on my own, and if he's half the man you always claimed he was, he'll figure out on his own too. How dare you? I'm done, I said. Don't call me again unless you're ready to apologize. And I mean really apologize, not just asking for money or help or anything else you think I owe you. I hung up, blocked her number, blocked Ryan's too. For a while, I felt like I was floating, untethered from the family that had never quite felt like home anyway. It hurt, but it also felt like freedom, like finally putting down a weight I'd been carrying since I was 12 years old. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that worried my roommate. Graduated top of my class. Got recruited by a major tech company in California with a starting salary that made my eyes water. Left Boston without looking back, ready to build a life that had nothing to do with being just a girl. The years passed. I climbed the corporate ladder with the same determination that had gotten me through MIT. I was good at what I did, brilliant actually. By 28, I was a senior engineer managing a team of 12 people. By 30, I was director of product development with a salary in the mid-six figures. By 32, I had enough saved to buy a house in cash and still have money left over. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. Part of me worried that Mom had been right, that I'd sacrificed the possibility of love and family for a career. But mostly I felt proud. I'd built something real, something that was mine, something nobody could take away or diminish or tell me I didn't deserve. I hadn't spoken to my mother or brother in over a decade when the letter arrived. It came to my office, forwarded through several old addresses before finally reaching me. The envelope was cheap, the handwriting shaky. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something made me slice it open with my letter opener, unfold the single page inside. Melissa, I don't have the right to ask you for anything. I know that. But I'm dying, and there are things I need to tell you before I go. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months. I'm writing this from the hospital. Ryan can't afford to take care of me. His marriage fell apart. He lost his job, and he's barely keeping his own head above water. The house is in foreclosure. Everything your father built is gone. I need to tell you that I was wrong. About everything. You were never just a girl. You were brilliant and determined and everything a mother should be proud of, and I was too blind and too stuck in my own backwards thinking to see it. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know that you were right to leave. You were right to build your own life. You were right about all of it. Your father would have been so proud of you. I'm sorry I never was.
Mom.
I read the letter 3 times, standing in my corner office with its view of the bay, my hands shaking slightly. I felt nothing. Then everything. Then nothing again. She was dying. My mother was dying, and she'd finally said the words I'd needed to hear at 12, at 18, at 21. Too late. Far too late. I booked a flight that night. The hospital was in the same town I'd grown up in, the same place I'd fled like it was burning. Everything looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier, like the whole place had been slowly declining while I'd been busy building a life elsewhere. Mom was in a shared room on the 3rd floor, looking so small in the hospital bed that I almost didn't recognize her. She'd always been a large presence in my life, looming and judgmental and impossible to please. This woman was thin and gray, her cheeks hollow, her hands like bird bones resting on top of the blanket. Her eyes opened when I walked in, and something flickered across her face.
Surprise.
Relief.
Shame.
Melissa. Her voice was barely a whisper. You came. I pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down, didn't take her hand. Not yet. I got your letter. I didn't think you would. I wouldn't have if I were you. We sat in silence for a moment. The machines around her beeped softly, steadily, marking time in a life that was running out. Where's Ryan? Asked finally. Working. He drives for one of those delivery companies now. 12-hour shifts. He comes when he can. And his kid?
Kids.
2 of them. The oldest is 11 now. He's got full custody. The mother left a few years ago, Couldn't handle it. Ryan does his best, but… She trailed off, and I could fill in the rest. But it's hard. But he's struggling. But he needs help. I'm not here to give money, I said, maybe too harshly. I know. I didn't ask you here for that. She took a shaky breath. I asked you here because I owe you the truth, and I need to say it to your face. I waited. I was scared, she said finally. After your father died, I was so scared. Of being alone, of not being able to survive, of failing. I thought if I invested everything in Ryan, he'd be successful and take care of us all. That's what my mother did with my brother. That's what all the women in my family did. We raised sons to be providers and daughters to be wives. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. It's an explanation, but you're right. It's not an excuse. Her eyes filled with tears. I was wrong, Melissa. I was so wrong about you, about what you were capable of, about what you deserved. I took my fear and my weakness, and I made them your burden. I made you feel worthless when you were extraordinary. I felt my throat tighten, years of pain pressing against the back of my eyes. Do you know what it was like? I asked quietly. Being 12 years old, and being told you don't matter as much as your brother? Watching you celebrate every mediocre thing he did while ignoring everything I achieved? Feeling invisible in my own home. No, she whispered, but I can imagine. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The tears came then, hot and angry, and mixed with grief for all the years we'd lost, all the moments we could have shared if she'd just seen me, really seen me, instead of the limitations she'd projected onto me. I needed you, I said, my voice breaking. I needed my mother, and you chose him over me. Every time. Every single time. I know. And I can't fix it. I can't give you back those years or that pain. I can only tell you that you were right to leave. You were right to build a life without us. You were right to refuse to be diminished. She reached out then, her thin hand trembling, and I took it. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Connection. The possibility of something resembling peace. Tell me about your life, she said. Please. I want to know who you became. So I told her about MIT, about the all-nighters and the breakthroughs, and the feeling of solving impossible problems. About my career, the projects I'd led, the products I'd built that millions of people used every day. About my house, my friends, the life I'd created from nothing but determination and spite, and the refusal to be just a girl. She listened, crying silently, nodding sometimes, her grip on my hand weak but steady. Your father would have been so proud, she said again when I finished. I wish I had been. I wish I had told you every day how remarkable you are. Me too. Ryan arrived around 7, still in his work uniform, looking exhausted and older than his 37 years. He stopped in the doorway when he saw me, his face cycling through emotions too quickly to name. Mel, he said finally. Holy shit. Hi, Ryan. We stared at each other, siblings separated by more than just distance. By choices and resentment, and the weight of our mother's mistakes. I'm going to get coffee, Mom said, even though she could barely walk. You two need to talk. After she shuffled out with her 4-pole, Ryan sat down heavily in the chair across from me. You look good, he said. Successful. Thanks. You look tired.
Yeah, well.
Life's been hard. He rubbed his face with both hands. I'm sorry, Mel. For everything. For being too stupid and selfish to see what Mom was doing to you. For asking you for money when I had no right. For not standing up for you when I should have. I hadn't expected an apology. Hadn't expected him to even acknowledge it. Something loosened in my chest just a little. I was angry at you for a long time, I admitted. But I get it now. We were both kids dealing with impossible things. She put you on a pedestal you never asked to be on. Doesn't make it right what happened to you. No, it doesn't. He looked down at his hands, worn and callous from work. I heard you're a big deal now. Director at some tech company. Making bank. Something like that. Good. I'm glad one of us made it out. We talked for hours that night, really talked for the first time since we were kids. He told me about his struggles, his divorce, his kids, the constant pressure of trying to keep everything together with nothing but willpower and exhaustion. I told him about the loneliness of success, the way I still sometimes heard Mom's voice in my head telling me I was just a girl, the relationships I'd sabotaged because I was too afraid of being diminished again. She really messed us both up, he said finally.
Yeah.
She did. Mom died 6 weeks later, in the middle of the night with Ryan and me both there. Her last words were, "I'm sorry," whispered to the room, to us, to the ghost of the mother she could have been. At the funeral, I stood next to Ryan and met his kids, a serious-faced 11-year-old boy and a wild 7-year-old girl who reminded me painfully of myself at that age. The girl attached herself to my leg immediately, asking a million questions about California and computers and whether I had a robot at home. "She's like you," Ryan said softly, watching his daughter with a mix of love and terror. "Smart as hell and doesn't let anyone tell her what she can't do." That's good. I don't want to make the same mistakes Mom did. I don't want Emily to ever feel like she matters less than her brother. Then don't. It's that simple and that hard. After the funeral, we settled Mom's estate. There was nothing to settle really, just debt and the foreclosure and the remnants of a life that had slowly collapsed. Ryan was drowning, and I could have let him sink. Part of me wanted him to feel a fraction of what I'd felt, wanted the justice of letting him struggle the way I'd had to struggle. But I thought about Emily, 7 years old with her wild hair and endless questions, and I couldn't do it. "I'm going to help you," I told Ryan the day before I flew back to California. "Not for Mom. Not even for you, really. But for your kids. They didn't ask for any of this, and they deserve better." "Mel, I can't. I'm not asking. I'm going to pay off your debt. I'm going to set up college funds for both kids, equal amounts, because that matters. I'm going to help you get back on your feet. But there are conditions." He nodded, waiting. "Emily gets every opportunity Jack gets. Every single one. If he plays sports, she can too. If she wants to take coding classes, you make it happen. If she wants to go to MIT or Harvard or anywhere else, you support her the same way you'd support him. No, just a girl bullshit. Ever. Do you understand?"
Yes. God, yes.
"I promise. And you tell her she's brilliant. You tell her she can do anything. You tell her she matters just as much as her brother. Every day if you have to."
I will.
I swear. I believed him. Or maybe I just chose to believe him because the alternative was too painful. The idea that Emily might grow up feeling worthless, that the cycle might continue, that Mom's poison might infect another generation. I couldn't bear it. I flew home that night and cried the whole way, mourning my mother and my childhood and the relationship we never got to have. But I also felt lighter somehow, like I'd finally put down something I'd been carrying for too long. The years passed. I stayed in touch with Ryan, watching from a distance as he slowly rebuilt his life.
Got a better job.
Moved into a decent apartment. Started therapy to deal with his own damage. I visited twice a year, bringing presents for the kids, sitting through school plays and soccer games and science fairs. Emily thrived.
God, she thrived.
She was everything I'd been at that age and more. Fearless and curious and absolutely convinced she could do anything. She texted me constantly with questions about math and science and what it was like being an engineer. I answered every single one. When she was 14, she called me crying because a teacher had told her that engineering wasn't a career for girls. "What did you say to him?" I asked. "I told him my aunt is a director at a major tech company and she's brilliant and he's an idiot." I laughed, my heart swelling with pride. "Good. What happened?" "I got sent to the principal's office. But the principal is a woman and she agreed with me. The teacher has to apologize." "You know what that makes you?" I asked. "What?" "Not just a girl. Not even close." She was quiet for a moment. "Dad told me about Grandma. About what she said to you." "Did he?"
Yeah.
"He said you proved her wrong about everything. That you're the strongest person he knows. Is that true?" "Did she really say you didn't matter?"
She did.
But she was wrong. And the fact that she was wrong doesn't make me strong. What makes me strong is that I refuse to believe her. That's the difference, Em. The world is going to tell you all sorts of things about what you can't do, who you can't be, how far you can't go. And you get to decide whether to believe it or not. I won't believe it, she said fiercely. I'm going to be just like you. No, I said gently. You're going to be exactly like yourself. That's even better. Last month, Emily got her acceptance letter to MIT. Full scholarship, just like me. Ryan sent me a video of the moment she opened it, her face cycling from shock to joy to tears to determination. He was crying in the background, telling her how proud he was, how brilliant she was, how nothing could stop her now. He called me after. I didn't screw it up, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't make Mom's mistakes.
No, you didn't.
You broke the cycle. We broke it. You showed me how. I thought about Mom then, about her letter and her apologies and her last whispered words. She'd been wrong about so much, had caused so much damage, had made choices that hurt me in ways that still ached sometimes. But maybe her story didn't have to be the end of the story. Maybe Emily going to MIT, thriving, being celebrated instead of diminished, maybe that was its own kind of redemption. Not for Mom. She didn't get redemption. She got consequences and regret, and the knowledge that she'd failed one daughter while trying to save a son who never needed saving in the first place. But maybe for me, maybe this was my redemption, breaking the cycle, making sure another girl didn't grow up feeling worthless, proving that being just a girl was never the limitation my mother thought it was. I wasn't just a girl. I never had been. I was brilliant and determined and successful and whole, entirely on my own terms, built from the ashes of a childhood that tried to teach me I was less than. And now Emily knew it too. She'd grow up knowing her worth, knowing her power, knowing that no one, not a parent, not a teacher, not society, got to tell her she mattered less because of her gender. That was justice. That was revenge. That was everything I'd fought for, distilled into one brilliant, fierce, unstoppable girl who would never, ever be told she was just anything. I took back what was mine. Not an inheritance or a house or money or my mother's approval. Something better. Something they never could have given me anyway. I took back my power, my worth, my right to take up space in the world and demand to be seen. And I made damn sure the next generation of girls in my family would never have to fight for it the way I did. That was my victory.
And it was enough.